Good morning, Algebra 2. We are going to jump into Lesson 78, Solving Quadratics, Part 2. So two things I know put down on here are just reminders. We can use the quadratic formula, but only on second-degree polynomials. And by second degree, I mean when x is squared. It doesn't work when x is cubed or x to the fourth. It only works when x is squared. The second is a reminder of the difference of two squares and that rule. So I'm going to do a couple with you, and then we'll jump into the lesson practice. So example number, we are going to be solving. So we're going to solve the following. So number 1, I have 9x squared minus 25 equals 0. Now, I'm going to do it using the difference of two squares method. So I recognize that both 9 and 25 are perfect squares. So I'm going to identify what term squared would give me 9x squared minus what number squared gives me 25. So the 25 is easy, right? 5 squared. And 9 is pretty easy. That's 3. But I need x squared, so it would be 3x. So the pattern says that one of my factors will have a plus sign and one will have a minus sign. So my factors would be 3x minus 5, 3x plus 5, set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve each. So 3x minus 5 equals 0, 3x plus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to add 5. 3x equals 5, divide by 3. X equals 5/3. On this side, I would subtract 5 from both, right? 3x equals negative 5, and then divide by 3. And x equals negative 5/3. So that is one way to solve this one. Next one, number 2. 10x cubed minus 10x equals 0. Now for this one, I notice these both have a 10 and they both have an x. So I'm going to start with my GCF, which is 10x. And that leaves me inside with x squared minus 1 equals 0. Now you have two options here. And it just is up to you how you'd like to solve it. But I know that this is the difference of two squares. X times x gives me x squared, and 1 times 1 gives me 1. And so 1 is plus, 1 is minus, and I have a 10x out front equal 0. So I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. So if I set 10x equal to 0, x plus 1 equal to 0, and x minus 1 equals to 0, I would then find my three solutions are 0, negative 1, and positive 1. That's one way to write it. You could also write it x equals 0 and plus or minus 1. A little bit shorter to write it that way. I got 0 because I would divide by 10. I would add 1, and I would subtract 1. And so that's how I'm getting my three solutions. All right, next one, I don't know if I'll have room on this side, so we'll flip it over. I'm going to solve 2x to the fourth minus 32 equals 0. I'm going to move that up a little bit. So again, I'm going to start with my GCF, which is 2, and that leaves me with x to the fourth minus 16 equals 0. Now, I'm going to break this down to identify the difference of two squares here. Sorry, this should say. I'm going to identify the difference of two squares. So 16 is 4 squared. X to the fourth is x squared. So my factors would be x squared minus 4 and x squared plus 4. And I'm going to set it equal to 0. So you can break this one down again, or you could just solve it algebraically. So I'm going to solve it algebraically to show you the other method. So I would add 4 to both sides. So I get x squared equals 4. I would then take the square root, and x can equal a positive 2 and a negative 2, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Other side, I would subtract 4, and I'd get x squared equals negative 4. Take the square root of both sides, and x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 4, which is 2i. And so these are my 4 solutions. So we're going to do the lesson practice on page 555. So part A, they'd like us to solve 100x squared minus 1 equals 0. Now there's 2 ways to do it, but we'll do it using the difference of 2 squares. So what gives us 100 and what gives us 1? Well, 1 squared gives me 1. Sorry about the glare. And 10x times 10x would give me 100x squared. So my factors are 10x plus 1 and 10x minus 1. So if I set these equal to 0, I get 10x equals a negative 1, so x equals negative 1/10. I would add 1 here. I get 10x equals 1, so then I get x equals a positive 1/10. And those are my solutions. Part B, they'd like us to solve 6x squared equals 150. And since it's already set up like that, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 6. X squared equals 25. Take the square root. X equals plus or minus 5. All right. Part C, 18x cubed minus 32x equals 0. And if I start with a GCF, they are both divisible by 2x, and I'm left with 9x squared minus 16. And then I'm going to factor 9x squared minus 16. So that would give me 3x and 4. So my factors are 3x minus 4 and 3x plus 4. And if I set each of these equal to 0, your 3 solutions are 0, 4/3, and negative 4/3. Next one. If you enter 16x to the 4th minus 1 equals 0, enter into Desmos and check for your x-intercepts. If you don't want to use a graphing calculator, you could do it by hand. This would be, in fact, I think we've already solved this one. Didn't we? Oh no, we didn't. So this would be 4x squared. This would be 1 squared. Sorry, this would be 4x squared. So that would give me 4x squared minus 1, 4x squared plus 1. And then I could factor this again to be 2x minus 1 and 2x plus 1. And then 4x squared plus 1. Now it only wanted the real roots. So x equals 1/2 and negative 1/2. These would be imaginary solutions because you'd have to subtract a 1. You'd be taking a square root of a negative number. This should be confirmed on Desmos, which is, they did ask you to do it graphically. Sorry, I'm pulling up Desmos on my phone. So y equals 16x to the fourth, minus 1, and then we would click on that, and I get, if you click on your zeros, that's at 0.5, and click on this side and negative 0.5. And that would confirm what we have. Next part is, was that E? Oh. We're going to count this as D and E because they wanted us to confirm. Part F, they would like us to solve x squared plus 16x plus 64 minus 36x, minus 12x plus 1 equals 0. So this one is different. We're going to go ahead and subtract first and combine like terms. So I get, this negative has to be applied to all three. So I get a negative 36x squared, a positive 12x, and a negative 1. And so if I combine like terms, I get negative 35x squared plus 28x plus 63 equals 0. Now, the difference of two squares and all those methods we've been using up until this point won't work. So we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative 28 plus or minus the square root of 28 squared minus 4 times negative 35 times 63 all over 2 times negative 35. And then we're going to simplify. So I'm going to start with with what's under the square root. So 28 squared minus 4 times negative 35 times 63. Okay, so I get negative 28 plus or minus the square root of 9604 all over negative 70. And then I'm going to simplify this square root of 9604. So the square root of 9604 is you can't see that on my calculator, is 98. So this x equals negative 28 plus or minus 98 over negative 70. And so I'm going to write my two solutions and simplify. One's negative 28 plus 98 over negative 70. One's negative 28 minus 98 over negative 70. And we're going to enter each. So negative 28 plus 98 divided by negative 70, and I get negative 1. Negative 28 minus 98 divided by negative 70, and I get positive 1.8. So x equals negative 1 and 1.8. Last one, part G. Part G gives us the following formula. The height at time, and time is in seconds, is negative 4.9 t squared plus initial velocity times t plus your initial height. They've told me that how long does it take for an initial object to hit the ground? So it says a height of 62.5. Velocity is velocity is 0. And it says that how long does it take to hit the ground? So the ground would be 0 equals negative 4.9 t squared. I don't have a middle term, plus 62.5. To solve, we would subtract. Then we would divide, and I got 12.755 equals t squared. Take the square root, and t equals 3.57 seconds. For homework 78, we're going to skip numbers I want to put this in order. 11, 18, 19, 21, 24, 26, and 27. Thank you.